And welcome to the Outsiders UFC 254. Just finished. Jeff Sherwood joining as always. I am Josh Gross. Hope you are well. It was a massive build-up to a fight that everybody was feeling like would be an incredible showcase for both these fighters, Khabib Nurmagomedov and Justin Gaethje. In the end, the great Khabib Nurmagomedov reigns, a triangle choke finish, puts Justin Gaethje to sleep. Absolutely incredible performance. There's so much to discuss, Jeff. Reaction just to the fight itself, the 1+ round that it lasted before Khabib Nurmagomedov retains his undefeated record, goes to 29-0, and puts Gaethje to sleep.
I think it comes down to basically what we just said on what I said on Thursday night about Khabib. Like, I think a lot of fighters think they really have a chance against him until they get in there. And they feel the strength. They feel the pressure. I mean, you saw the pressure. Daniel Cormier kept talking about the pressure. We talked about how Gaethje in the past had shown a little problems with his gas, but has seemed to move on from that. But you saw after round one, Gaethje was winded. I mean, he was breathing hard, and Khabib looked like he wasn't even breathing. So I think it's definitely one of those things that everyone thinks they're ready till they get in there, and then they feel it. And the moment is so big, not even tying what Khabib's doing to you, just the moment of being in there. Even though Justin Gaethje has been in a lot of fights, this moment was the hugest moment of his career. So taking that all in, taking Khabib in with his pressure, his strength, and the fear of being taken down, because even Justin Gaethje kind of played into that a little bit. And I just think the moments get too big, and Khabib always rises to the top. It's crazy.
I think there's a lot to that, Jeff, and you're on. You know, we were sort of discussing is Khabib who he appears to be, right? You have in various sports, whatever it is, certain times and periods where competitors just they distance themselves from everybody else. And whether it's a combination of skill or mental fortitude or right time, right place, whatever it is, you have certain people at certain points who distinguish themselves as competitors. And Khabib Nurmagomedov has done that throughout his UFC career, and he did that tonight. There's no doubt about it. Let's walk through this fight, Jeff. The first round, a very competitive opening round. How did you score it?
I thought Khabib won it.
But not by much.
No, it was a close round.
And he won it because of his pressure, right?
His pressure.
And his pressure in a late takedown.
Right. I mean, he was in Gaethje's face. Every time Gaethje would try and circle out or something, Khabib was right there when Gaethje finished circling, right there in his face.
He was.
Landing that jab. Every time you watch Khabib, you think like, we've seen the best of him, but he seems still to be getting better, and now he seems to be retired.
Well, we'll talk about that, obviously, because it does seem like he's in the prime of his career. He's never been better. He's never beating a higher class of competitor in more dominant ways, and he walked away. We'll talk about that in a second, but let's get through this fight. So it seemed like Gaethje was laying down the foundation of a winning performance. He went after Khabib's legs. He was hurting Khabib. I think he was forcing Khabib early to press. Khabib knew that his leg was starting to hurt. He had to ramp the pressure up, take the fight to Gaethje. To me, Gaethje was the first to dictate Khabib moving forward with pressure. I don't know that Khabib necessarily wanted to do that. But when he did, we got the first glimpses. I think that takedown at the end of round one was really important. It was really important for Khabib and for Gaethje, and it set the tone and the possibility. And then you go to round two, and he gets the fight to the floor, really sort of just like saying, you're going to go to the floor now, and goes straight to mount, and walks to that triangle and rolls over. And that was like, I mean, you expect someone who's a high-level jiu-jitsu person to do that to someone who doesn't know very much. Just the way he did it was like sort of like demonstrating how to do the triangle choke from mount. Mm-hmm. That's how seamless it was. And that's not really something that Khabib Nurmagomedov has shown too much of, right? He smashes people. He's submitted some, but he smashes them before he does it. And he didn't do that. He rolled over and finished it and just pure technical brilliance. I think he showed another level to his game tonight, Jeff. I think he showed he's the best fighter in the sport. He's leaving the best fighter in the sport. And we can have feelings about that, but do you agree? Do you agree that Khabib Nurmagomedov right now, here in the time, right now in this place, is the best fighter from a skills perspective, from an accomplishment perspective, from any kind of metric that you can register, even from a popularity, global popularity metric, because he is enormous around the world. He speaks to populations who don't usually watch the sport. Is this the most popular, the best fighter leaving mixed martial arts right now?
Yeah, I want to go back to first, before I answer that question, your statement about round one. I don't necessarily think that Gaethje forced Khabib to put that pressure. I think that was the game plan from the start. Gaethje's a pressure fighter as well. He comes at you. He throws big bombs. He wants to hit you. He's coming forward. I think that was Khabib's way of kind of staying away from that a little bit. And you did see Khabib taking a couple shots. He got hit pretty good twice. I think it was twice or three times. But I think that was their game plan. I really do. And I could be totally wrong and you could be right, but I'm just saying I think that's how they chose to fight Justin Gaethje.
We'll find out. We'll find out. What did you make of Gaethje? Because, I thought that he needed to win the fight within the first 3 rounds and really come out with pressure. Mm-hmm. And he didn't. It seemed like he was content to wait and counter, low kick, land shots, scramble when he could. And at least his early game plan.
I think after round one, even though Trevor Whitman tried to get him to calm down in the corner, I think he was breathing hard. I mean, you could tell after the bell of round one, you can see that Gaethje was breathing hard, and I think that he was probably thinking in his head, what am I going to do? I think that Justin Gaethje seemed, which really surprised me. We usually see this with high-level strikers against grapplers, is they're worried so much about the takedown they forget about their striking for some reason. And I thought that Justin Gaethje would never really worry about this, especially going into the fight of Khabib taking him down, because I thought that it was going to be very hard for Khabib to take Justin down. I thought the big takedowns would come post round 3. But it seemed to me, and this is just me, fat guy sitting on the couch watching a fight, that he put too much emphasis on that.
Yeah.
So
I think it goes to your first point, Jeff, that Justin Gaethje felt like he was in the cage with Khabib Nurmagomedov.
Yeah.
Okay. We've seen this. I felt like I was in the cage with Fedor Emelianenko. I felt like I was in the cage with Anderson Silva. I felt like I was in the cage with John Jones. Those elite level competitors have a different thing that forces their opponents most of the time to come in from a different mental place or have a different mental cue just because of who's standing opposite them. And I was with you. I thought Gaethje had enough of that sort of just vision locked in to not get swayed by that and come and bring the fight. And he didn't quite do it. And I do, again, credit Khabib for pressuring and changing the fight, because we'll see what they say about game plans, but it was tremendous.
Right.
What does Justin do here? Because now Khabib's gone, the belt's gone. It opens up. All of a sudden, it's like light heavyweight, where everybody in the world is looks like a contender now. And lightweight's the deepest weight class probably in the UFC. All of a sudden, it's free for all. They should just do, what does the WWE do? The Royal Rumble? Do a UFC Royal Rumble. I mean, who the hell knows who wins this thing?
They all get put in the octagon, and the last man standing wins the belt.
They all do it at the same time. They all run around and fight each other. It's like a Russian MMA card.
8 on 8 or whatever those Russian things were, or something like that, which is kind of great, by the way. And I'm sure you can't stand them. But I feel that Justin Gaethje's performance against Tony Ferguson cements him as still the number 1 contender, even though he lost to Khabib. I mean, we both said this show the whole time that Khabib's on another level than everyone else. I don't put too much into Justin Gaethje losing to Khabib. He's the best in the world, and he's walking away. So you need somebody at the belt. I definitely think Justin Gaethje fights for the belt next, coming off of a loss.
Okay. I mean, they'll have to figure out an opponent and sort it out. And all of a sudden, hey, Conor McGregor can come back to 55, no sweat. He can be champion again. He
Yeah.
couldn't be a champion before. So let's talk about how much sort of the sport loses by. I tweeted comparing Khabib and like an Andre Ward. These fighters who leave, it seems like right in the prime of their career, undefeated. You part of us feels like, hey, you owe us more than that. Like we need to see you push to the very end, right? And yet they don't owe us a thing. They owe us nothing, and we shouldn't feel that way. But I think this sticks. I mean, it's just like he's so young and he may come back for a fight, but I feel like he's sincere in this moment. This isn't some ploy to sit down for more money. He doesn't need to do that. He's walking away from so much money right now. It's insane. And what's that?
The thing that I think makes it legit is he said, I promised my mother
Right.
one more fight, and after that fight, I'll walk away.
Yeah.
Most guys, who knows? Most guys retire off of a loss. I mean,
I'm sorry to cut you off, but wasn't there also a promise to his dad to 30-0, or was that? Am I not right on that?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I haven't.
I think there was something. If that's real, I think it was. If that's a real thing, then I can see. I can see down the road. It's kind of like what I talked about on Thursday, right? I mean, it would take something like that to bring him back, and it would have to happen in the next year and a half.
Yeah.
And anything's possible, but I think generally speaking, the idea that Khabib is going to regularly defend, or not regularly is probably not the right word with him because it didn't defend it that often, but to defend this title over and over again, I think those days are done. He's got maybe one for the greatest of all time, and if he fought GSP, I have no problem crowning the winner of that fight is the greatest mixed martial artist of all time. I have no problem. I wouldn't have a problem with that.
Yeah, I think it's a little past GSP's time, unfortunately, but yeah, I mean, obviously, I would love to see that fight.
Yeah. So this is a big deal. It's turned into a very important card in 2020, right? We thought we were going to be talking coming off a win or a loss, regardless of who had the belt. A lot of scenarios, a lot of matchups that could happen, these sort of potential, where does the division go from here? And now sort of a breaks on half of that conversation, and it's just a wide open field. So I think a lot of lightweights are going to be scrambling to get in that mix, Jeff. And I doubt Khabib's going to be watching him too much. I don't think he's going to be like John Jones keeping track on all the light heavyweights out there who are doing their thing. He's going to be taking some time off at the very.
He doesn't have to. Yeah, he doesn't have to. He's at the top. There's no reason to be checking in or doing anything because, I mean, let's be honest. Even though the light heavyweight, I mean the lightweight division is incredible. His division, he's way ahead of him.
Right.
So there's no reason to look over your shoulder and worry about what they're doing because he doesn't have to worry about that.
No, that's a bunch of goats. He deserves all those goats. That's how good he is.
Yeah.
Co-main event, Jeff. This card did have other fights that definitely deserve discussion. I think all the oxygen is going to be put on this fight, this outcome, and what the fallout is. But no question about it, Robert Whittaker and Jared Cannonier is an important fight, huge fight at 185 for the UFC. And you had it right that Robert Whittaker was ready, primed again to win a big fight in a really convincing way. And he did it over someone who's really, really good. Jared Cannonier is an excellent fighter. But Bobby Knuckles did his thing tonight. What'd you see from him? Because is this? I think this was a better performance than his last fight by far. And to me, it's a strong enough effort against a high class enough fighter where you can say, all right, I wouldn't mind seeing him fight Israel Adesanya again. That's kind of like where the thresholds he had to meet, right? Did he get there?
I definitely think so. I mean, you saw Israel Adesanya say that he sent Cannonier a DM saying, if you win this fight, you're next. So he lost. So the obvious choice is Whittaker. And Whittaker definitely stepped up to the plate. took those leg kicks. You saw the movement in Whitaker. I honestly feel like that time off and some of the injuries he had really did his body and his mind good. And Daniel Cormier talked about it on the broadcast. Like, you don't know what it's like to be champion and how draining it is, and always be the man where all the questions come to you. People are always looking at you. You're always fighting the best fighter. You're always fighting 5 rounds. That's an emotional and physical drain on you. And I think that time away, especially coming back and only having to fight 3 rounds, I think it's done Robert Whitaker well, and I think it's time for him to make another run.
You definitely looked it right. He looked set up for it. This is a primed like Jared Cannonier. Excellent shape, ready to fight, looked physically dangerous, the whole deal. And Whitaker landed extraordinary combinations. That finishing, sequence. It wasn't a finishing sequence, but almost a finishing sequence. Absolutely like gorgeous. The jab was popping all night. I thought Cannonier didn't do enough, right? Cannonier too was slipping and moving. I mean, he was slick. He did a lot of stuff that was really good in the fight. I just didn't see enough output from him.
Right.
Not enough offense. And you heard his corner calling for that. He didn't quite have it. He didn't mix it up either enough. Not enough wrestling attempts to get, at least Whitaker thinking about second levels and having his eye range in a different place. So, this is a big loss for Cannonier. The win I think would have made it sort of impossible to deny him. Now he's a guy who could conceivably just never reach that point based on how the rest of the things shake out. So this was an important result, and Robert Whitaker I think definitely deserves to be in consideration for that title shot. Jeff, what do you think about the rest of the card? Anything stand out to you in terms of performance? I will say that I did not start watching until the Stefan Struve fight. I played 9 holes this morning, and then I had breakfast, and I was sort of really focused on the pay-per-view. I was relying on you to be up at 7 a.m. to watch this video. I knew you would be, so you can break it down for me. What else did you see on this card?
Yeah, I was. A lot of great fights. The first fight of the night, the kid that you said to watch actually had a great performance. Joel Alvarez had a really good performance. And what we said, we both picked a fight that probably most people, or a lot of people, especially casuals, had no idea who either one of the fighters were. Turned out to be a great fight at Casey Kenny against Nathaniel Wood. And I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, there was some great fights, right? But still, that had to be in the mention of fight of the night. The only fight that I really kind of hacked a little bit was the Volkov fight, who that kick was really great against Walt Harris. And
you've had your wind knocked out of you, right, Jeff?
Yeah, a few times. I've got hit by baseballs. I've got punched there.
Yeah,
it's a horrible feeling.
It's a horrible feeling, especially, and the kick is worse. A lot of times you get it like in soccer, like you land on the ball or something happens. But when you take that kick, that strike up into under the sternum, into the solar plexus, you're just like you can't do anything.
Right.
You walk around like for 4 days.
What's crazy is it kind of feels like you're dying.
Yeah,
or a couple moments
because you can't breathe, you can't inhale.
Right, you start to panic because you can't breathe. So it's kind of at first at live speed, it was hard to tell where that kick was.
Some people thought it was a low blow, but no, that was like
right.
Man, that's
perfect. And even the broadcast team kind of at first wondered if it was a low blow or not. But then when he turned over and he was holding his stomach, you definitely knew that it wasn't really a low blow. But I will say that sometimes you do get a low blow or hit with a baseball, and it does put pain in your stomach.
Yeah. Interesting to hear about. I'm going to watch the prelims when we're done here. Interesting to hear about Alvarez. He's definitely slick. Like I'm sure the submission was nice, armbar. And then you where are you on the shoey thing, man?
That's disgusting. I wouldn't do it out of my own shoe. So definitely out of nobody else's shoe. I'm kind of
I would say whole thing where like four dudes standing around spitting in it, and then he just like
right.
What is that? He couldn't wait to do it. Tai Tuivasa couldn't wait to drink out of a shoe. Like it was the first thing that he thought about after stopping Stefan Struve. Literally was like, where's the shoe and the beer?
Right.
I don't get it. Have you ever wanted to do anything that badly?
No, I mean, I even had a hard time when I was in high school and things like that with, the beer bong.
Right.
I wouldn't say I'm like a germaphobe, but there's certain things that bother me. Even with my kids, I'm kind of weird that way. Like if I had a soda with a straw and my kids took a drink out of it, I would let them have it. And they're my own kid. So I'm definitely never doing a shoey. And I had a problem with beer bongs because other people, like I would clean it fully down with a rag or anything before I did it because everyone at the parties sucking on that thing. So that just wasn't really my thing. So a shoey, hell no, never.
So. Yeah, let's ban them. Like no more shoeys.
Right. And apparently John Anik has to do one. I want to know whose shoe he's going to drink out of.
And who's spitting in it? Because I think that's like the main thing. Like it's not really a shoey if you don't spit in it. Yeah. I don't know if it can be your own spit. It's got to be somebody else's. But give me a break on that. That's run its course. We get it. You love it. Fine. Right. That's tremendous. I'll make some observations here on the fights that I saw, Jeff. Like I said, the light heavyweight division in the UFC is on fire, and all the MMA is a whole, of course, but just like inside the UFC universe, suddenly that division is stacked with unbelievable contenders who I think were coming. We just didn't notice them, and now in the absence of Jones, we're seeing these people come. And Magomed Ankalaev is just another one of these Caucasian killers, man. That comes from the mountains. And like is just going to wreck your life. And he did it to Ian Kudalaba. Beautiful knockout there. No more questions. And that was super impressive. Want to see him now matched up the food chain at 205. Guys, we didn't talk about too much on Thursday. That Phil Hawes stoppage was just violence. Just violence.
Yeah, I talked about his wrestling just a little bit, touched on it, but there was no wrestling needed in that fight. That was like a street fight gone bad.
Depends on which side you're on, right? That's like either the perfect street fight or the worst street fight of all time.
That's usually why
room for error on that one,
Right. That's usually like a guy in the bar that thinks he's bad and talks shit to a guy all night, and then he turns into that and does that to him.
Yeah, you just never know. Well, bringing it back to the thing that people will be talking about now for a while, sort of the presence of this person, Khabib Nurmagomedov, in the sport, his lasting impact on the sport. I was really impressed with him when I got to spend a lot of time around him last year before the Dustin Poirier fight. I went up to San Jose and did a profile on him for The Athletic and followed him. I spent a lot of time with him in the gym, followed him to a nearby mosque in San Jose and watched him and got the impressions of the people around him who were there, just normal people who were living their lives. And he's a unique fighter, an important fighter in the history of mixed martial arts, not just because he's 29-0 and not just because he's held onto the belt and been undefeated in the UFC and done all these things that are incredible and did it in a way that really said dominance, just pure dominance. But I think he stretched the boundaries of the sport. He got audiences and parts of the world that really wouldn't have focused on mixed martial arts before, really kind of looking at it deeply and thinking about it. And that's going to be a legacy that lasts. What's your main feeling about Khabib, just in terms of what he delivered to mixed martial arts and the time that he spent in the space?
Yeah, I spent a whole lot of time with Khabib through the years. I mean, living up here, there were times that I was going to AKA on a monthly basis. And I remember many times just sitting on the mat talking to him. Oh, yeah. Wasn't part of an interview, nothing. It was just, after practice or whatever. And he would sit there and talk to me for, as long as, it wasn't like he was in a hurry or whatever. And I remember the stories of him telling me, someday you'll meet my dad and you'll see how great of a man he is. He said, I have a whole camp of guys back home that my dad's been training that could be UFC champions. And this was way before he was even champ. and he's telling me things like this, and
Sure.
and obviously it kind of worked out to that. I mean, we're starting to see them now. All of his teammates coming over and are all legit fighters. So his dad, he kept saying that his dad's the best trainer in the world. His love for AKA was huge. He loved Javi. Javi loved him. He was such a down to earth guy.
Yeah.
And we used to talk, through social media quite a bit. And he was always looking for help on his teammates' records and things like that. And he was just, it was great. It was great, a great run. And we don't ever really see athletes go out on top. And when they announce that they're going out like this, we never believe it, especially in MMA. But like we discussed at the beginning of the program, I tend to believe this one a little more. I hope, for my selfish reasons of being a MMA fan, that wasn't his last fight. But if it is, that's one of the greatest things ever. I mean, I'll admit, at the end of the fight, when he just put his face down into the canvas and was crying uncontrollably, that was definitely one of those moments that we get from sports that kind of gives you a feel good moment, and you realize that these guys are just normal people like we are. And they hurt, they cry, and just like everyone else. And I think that's when we really feel the love in sports, and that was definitely a moment.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. And my sense of him is that he is among the most genuine fighters that I've met in the sport, in terms of like who he portrays himself is actually who he is.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'm not spending all day along with him. You talk to people around him. That's my impression based off of just the experience that I've seen. Absolutely, stands out as that in a lot of ways. Just in terms of his competitiveness, he was someone like you. I think, Jeff, last show you did this.
Yeah, I did.
You did. I'm going to do this for me too here, although I'm sure I wasn't alone in it. Pretty damn early on, I said he was going to be a UFC champion. And, someone in the lightweight division, that's not something like you can't really say that too much. But I remember telling John Anik, I don't know, 8 years ago, I don't even know what it was. I was like, this guy, champion, book it. He is like unbelievable. And even at the time, it was just a presence about him. And I think you were good to bring up the doorway that he really, I think, opened. People had been knocking down that doorway to Dagestan and Chechnya and sort of that part of the world for a while. But his success, now his global presence, really sort of just opened the door, I think, to that athlete from that region, being able to say, hey, I'm the best in the world at this, and do it in a style that had class and dignity. I think represented people in a real way. To me, that's his legacy. To me, that's Khabib's legacy, whether he comes back or not. And I'm with you. Selfishly, I would love to see him continue to fight. It doesn't even have to be GSP. Just come back and fight some other lightweight, because I want to see if someone exists on this planet who can handle him. And I think there's still a window of time in Khabib's career where it's a fair question to ask. But that's us being selfish, right? He doesn't owe us anything, and we shall see. Jeff, I think a pretty important day in mixed martial arts. I'm glad we did this show.
Yeah, I was actually putting my tweet together for after the moment that he was crying, and I noticed him really trying to get his gloves off.
Right.
So I hashtagged it. Is he going to retire?
Yeah.
Because most fighters do not worry about taking their gloves off before the interview unless they're like king of the cage, and that's because the next fighter has to wear those gloves in the next fight, and it's not like that. And I was like, holy crap. And as I'm writing out the tweet, I was like, he's going to retire.
Yeah.
And it was crazy. It was a crazy moment.
It's one of those things you can read, right? I think we've seen enough and we've fight a reaction enough, and he was tugging at them, working on really quick. You're like, oh, this is different. So, he had in his head, he knew what he was going to do. And he's done that before, he's done that before. You remember all the stuff with Conor McGregor. How could you ever forget that? Calculated in a lot of different ways.
Right.
That's we got to pick up the pieces, move on. Mixed martial arts rolls on. Another UFC pay-per-view. It wasn't the fight of the year, but there are a lot of memories from this card that will resonate from 2020 and beyond is important. For Jeff Sherwood, I am Josh Gross. Thank you for checking out The Outsiders. Like our YouTube page, all that other stuff. We appreciate the support. Thank you so much. Take care. Jeff thought that was